Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to interCHANGE. We're just a few days away from the primary election. We'll talk tonight about how things are shaping up in the governor's race. We'll talk about the vote Monday by union workers at Harley Davidson. Will it result in jobs being kept in Milwaukee? We'll talk about the problems at O'Donnell Park. Should they fix it or just tear it down and start over? And we will talk about the 9th anniversary of the attack on America. Joining us today, our newspaper columnist Joel McNally. Kevin Fischer, an aide to Republican State Senator Mary Lozick, and oftentimes a host over on WISN Radio. Denise Callaway, she's a communications director for the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. And Gerard Randall, well-known consultant and local job creation expert. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, the first thing we've got to talk about is Tuesday's election. In the governor's race, two big things this past week. There is so much talk now that the race between Mark Newman and Scott Walker is a lot closer than most people thought it was. And on the Democrat side, Tom Barrett releases a TV commercial this week where his wife talks about the horrible beating the mayor suffered last year at State Fair Park. That commercial is raising some eyebrows. Joel, you think it's appropriate or not?
I actually thought it was very well done. You thinking about it and reading about it, you feel a little squeamish. You know, how are they going to do this? I do think that it's a significant factor in the race. It says a lot about character. It says a lot about who Tom Barrett is, and you know, there would have been ways to do that I think would have been tasteless. But I think certainly Chris Barrett, speaking as a wife, and you know, just watching her talk about it, you can imagine a family going through that. You can imagine the human, you know, feelings involved, and I obviously, you know, that's one of the reasons why Tom Barrett, as mayor of Milwaukee, you know, has some good vibes out in the state. Ordinarily, you would think a mayor of Milwaukee would not have a chance to run for governor. It hasn't, you know, there hasn't been anyone elected from Milwaukee since the 30s. And there's all this anti-Milwaukee feeling, but there's not anti-Tom Barrett feeling, I don't think. And I don't blame them for, you know, using it in a high-profile kind of way. It's sort of the start of the post-Labor Day kicking off the campaign. That says a lot about who Tom is, and that's part of what people are going to be making their decision on.
Does it say anything about what kind of governor he would make?
Not a bit. There's nothing in it that speaks to his political accomplishments. It speaks to character, but I think it also talks about what people mostly know about Tom Barrett already. He's a good guy. He's a stand-up guy. I don't think there are too many people that would challenge that. His political record, on the other hand, can be challenged and ought to be challenged, and I think Scott Walker, as the nominee, will challenge that pretty aggressively. The record that the mayor has with regards to job creation, his record with regards to crime, and his record on education, the three things that when he ran as mayor, he said he wanted to make as his top priorities, that he would address those and he would demonstrate some real accomplishment. And he hasn't done that in two of the three areas. Crime arguably is the one area where he might be able to show that he's made some headway in this community.
Kevin, why does everybody all of a sudden the last week start talking about, wow, Newman might win this thing? It's closer than everybody thought it was.
I don't know who you've been talking to.
All of talk radio has been saying the same thing.
Well, I think that's so much bar talk. It's the rumor mill.
Actually, I think we started it last week.
I do
well,
too.
there you go.
And I think one of us suggested then that the race was closer than people thought. Not saying who
But
that
I
was,
do
but that
believe
great
that.
insight.
Yeah, I brought that up.
Yeah.
There's been no definitive polling in this race, in that primary. I think the conventional wisdom from people I talk to, and for the last umpteen months, is that this is Scott Walker's race, that Mark Newman blew it at the beginning when he came out and violated the 11th commandment among Republicans, that you don't go after each other. You don't beat each other up. Even if you're in a primary, you're nice to each other. You're unified.
Well, Scott Walker was beating up Mark Newman just this past.
Well, he retaliated, which is the thing you do. Your opponent, when you go as negative as he did so early, which was surprising, that shows that you're desperate, that you're behind. He may have caught up with this blitzkrieg of ads as of late. I mean, every 2 seconds you turn on a radio, you flip the dial, there's another Mark Newman ad. And last month, Governor Doyle, not once but twice, gave $500,000 to the Greater Wisconsin Committee, which it was reported this week has turned that money into anti-Scott Walker ads. So Scott Walker has the bullseye on his back. He's going to win next Tuesday. By what margin? I don't think anybody knows, but he's obviously the person that they fear because the attack ads have come very heavy from Tom Barrett, who's normally a sweetheart of a guy, and now Jim Doyle is paying the Greater Wisconsin Committee to go in and try to assassinate politically
Yeah.
Scott Walker. But let's talk about, it's tightened up and Mark Newman's going to win. And I have no idea. I believe Scott Walker's going to win, but I haven't seen any definitive analysis, numbers, figures to back up this kind of rumor mill.
Well, I think it's more than rumor.
Well, this is an opinionated show.
I think it's more than rumor. And I think we may not be seeing any polling, but I think internally they're seeing their polling. And I think we all know enough about campaigns that when you start to see some things happen externally in terms of the different tone that ads are taking, whether ads are, the focus that they're taking, that tells you that the candidates know something that perhaps we don't know in terms of their internal polling. I said last week that, from what I'm hearing from folks, particularly in the northern part of the state, it's Newman, Newman, Newman. I think that some of their internal polling for both candidates is showing that this race is tightening up significantly. That's why Scott Walker changed his emphasis from talking about Tom Barrett to talking about Mark Newman. And Mark Newman has been just rapid fire quick in terms of responding to some of these pieces. Mark Newman is a smart guy. He's not a guy who's going to spend millions of his own money if he doesn't think that he's going to be able to win this thing. I think that's why, and I think their internal polling, I believe, shows that. That's why I think we've seen that switch.
The problem
and
with
changes.
internal polling for primaries is nobody knows who's going to vote in the primary. And that's why you haven't seen public polls, because pollsters themselves will tell you that the hardest thing to do is to figure out who's going to actually vote in an off-year election, not major election, and they don't trust their own polls.
Party activists tend to vote in primaries, and in this particular primary, the party activists on the Republican side are solidly behind Scott Walker. He's got the ground troops,
we'll see.
And he's got the people who are prepared to make sure the turnout is in his favor.
We can't forget, though, the fact that, we have this whole new group of people who've associated themselves with the Tea Party.
And they're Walker backers, too.
Well, some of them are, but not all of them are. Not all of them are Walker backers. And for some of them, that label that Mark Newman has given himself as being the conservative candidate is going to go a long way. So we'll see what happens.
All right, next topic. On Monday, Harley Davidson production workers vote on a new contract that lets the company hire seasonal workers at about half the hourly wage of those regular workers, and the seasonal workers won't have any job security, no health benefits, nothing. But the perceived threat, and it's more than perceived because the Harley CEO sent a letter to workers today saying, if you don't approve this contract, we are moving production jobs out of here. This is really a stark example of how organized labor completely loses its muscle in a down economy. Suddenly, management's calling all the shots.
Oh, and this is plain and simple extortion. I think it's a terrible contract. I'm surprised that the union is recommending it, truthfully. If it's practically an abdication of your responsibility under the law to represent your workers. If you're allowing people to do exactly the same work at half the wage, no benefits, and no job security, I don't see how that's even, I would think someone in that union, in that situation, could bring charges against the union leadership, to tell you the truth, because under federal law, you're supposed to represent the interest of your employees.
Yeah, but the reality is, though, if you have a wife and 2 kids, your wife doesn't work, you need the health benefits, you have no choice but to vote for this guy.
Well, and that's the experience of the Mercury Marine unionized workers when they were faced with the very same thing. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there's first a protest vote because the union workers are upset with what was put before them. And
just
then
like the Mercury,
the same thing with the same outcome, that they vote against it. And then they will turn around and vote narrowly, perhaps, in favor of this contract. I honestly don't believe, though, that the Harley management has the same type of patience that the Mercury Marine management had when they put that deal out in front of their workers. And so if it gets voted down the first go-round, I don't know that there's going to be a second go-round, and I honestly believe they will move.
Well,
Kevin, in
Harley has
the
said they
letter
will.
Harley sent today to the workers, they said, we will call our board to meet the next day if you vote this down, and they will move ahead.
That
with moving
sounds
the
almost
jobs
like
out
an
of here.
unfair labor practice under federal law, as a matter of fact.
I don't think there'll be a second vote. I don't think Harley will give them that opportunity. They're going to say, this is it. You need to tell us what you want to do. Tell us if you're willing to agree to these concessions or not, and that's going to be it. Now, the other night on the news, I heard a Harley worker who was coming out of the meeting where they were explaining what's in the contract, and she said, the problem is nobody's buying any motorcycles.
Bingo.
And that's the issue. I think Harley in the past has had a reputation for treating its workers very well. But the economic issue that Harley is facing and that therefore the workers are facing is that in this economy, people are not buying motorcycles. If you're not selling a product, it's hard to keep people employed. And, I think that for better or worse, what they're trying to do is to find a way to keep people employed in this community. Because this is the birthplace of Harley Davidson motorcycle. They're trying to do that. But I don't think there's going to be a second vote. I don't think Harley, I agree with Gerard, I don't think their management has the patience to say, we're going to give it to you for a second time. I think they feel that and I think most people would agree, they've made it very clear that if the union does not vote to accept these concessions, they're going to move. And I think that's precisely what's going to happen.
And you know what, Kevin? If the worker walks in Monday, his choice is, okay, $30 an hour that I'm making right now, or nothing.
One would think, as difficult as that choice is, to take the cut, take the concession, or take a pink slip and be on the unemployment line, that it would be not an easy, laugh riot choice to make, but I don't see how the workers have any other choice but to accept these concessions. Now, the company is coming off really bad. They were bastardized in an editorial today by the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, of all people. They've really been fair to their workforce over the years.
Right.
Real pro-union group.
So the Harley Davidson management has an image now of being rough and tough and mean and threatening. But you have to understand this economy, and the Mercury Marine analogy is a good one. No one's buying motorcycles in this economy. No one's buying small cars in this economy. No one's buying boats from Mercury Marine in this economy. So what's your alternative? Harley Davidson really doesn't have any choice but to go to the union and ask for concessions and say, look, this is a matter of survival for you and us. If we don't do this, the jobs are gone. You're sitting at home unemployed, trying to find employment in a very rough economy, and we have to go where we can do the job for less. That is the simple, hard, harsh reality today.
But if you replace full-time workers with so-called casual workers doing the same work for half the wage and no benefits,
I understand, Joel.
and no protection, your union is on its way out. Your union can no longer protect its employees, can no longer stand up for their rights, and there's no reason for a union if that's
Maybe
all
the
you can do.
behavior and actions of unions over the past 10, 12, 15 years have led us to the point of what we're discussing right here tonight.
But I think the problem is in this economy, whether you're a union worker or you're an at-will employee, there is little protection for anybody in this kind of an economy.
No one's guaranteed
This is
job
just-
security these days.
That's absolutely true, and I think it's a harsh reality that we all have to face. And the reality of it is that it is a matter of saying, do you want a job, or are you willing to have no job, and quite frankly, no prospect of anything
It's
happening
simply a race to
soon.
the bottom.
Yeah.
All right, next topic. Milwaukee County released a consultant's report about the crumbling O'Donnell Park this week. The choices range from tearing it down at a cost of about $1 million to fixing it all up at a cost that could reach more than $5 million. What should they do, Joel? I think they should just sell the land and let whoever buys the land tear it down and build whatever they want.
No, it's a great public entryway into the worldwide landmark of Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Art Museum, the Calatrava. It's the last thing we'd want would be to have someone buy it and develop it and put something at the end of Wisconsin Avenue, that'll make them money but not benefit the community. No, absolutely, it should be preserved, and it should certainly be safe and kept in good order and not be falling down and killing people in our community. No question about that. And that should have been done on a regular basis up till now. But it's a beautiful vista overlooking Lake Michigan at the end of our main street and right next to one of the most famous landmarks now of Milwaukee that is recognized all over the world, and certainly is to be protected and preserved.
I've never been that impressed with the appearance of the whole thing to begin with. I think it's sort of like MacArthur Square. The intention was good, but it doesn't serve a purpose
the
anymore.
Parking's
really.
hidden. You don't see it because
Right.
you have this.
That's a good thing.
Right. And I think when it first started out, I felt the same way you did. In the early stages, wasn't it just like a bus shelter? But now it looks a heck of a lot better. Yeah. And you have all these options now that have the price tags seem to be in the same ballpark. We're talking between $3.5 and maybe $8.5 million. I say go for the one that's most cost effective, one that will be safe so that you won't suffer another occurrence of this tragedy, and somehow find a way to keep that parking. I think to eliminate parking, especially in downtown, which you need places to park, and there don't seem to be enough of them. We seem to, as a society here in Milwaukee, want to deter people from coming downtown with their cars. We make it difficult to park. I would think that's an important element to try to maintain that parking so that people can go to those wonderful things that Joel mentioned, like the Calatrava Museum.
Should they rip it down and build
Yes.
something prettier?
Yes.
Well, I think that's an option that should be looked
Yeah,
at.
I think
It's
they
a
should tear
public
it down.
place that is in the public trust, and as Joel pointed out, it is a gateway to downtown and to the lakefront in many ways for us. We ought to do something bold, like what was done in Chicago with Millennium Park. Public-private venture that yielded a lot of private sector money to enhance a public space. It's a beautiful public space down there. We had that chance to do that here. We can rip it down and come up with something completely different.
Like a restaurant row, maybe?
Well, I wouldn't do a restaurant
wouldn't
row
laugh
as
at
much
that.
as I would continue to.
I would
keep
scoff
it
at retail because people are not going downtown to shop.
as a beautifully landscaped public park. And, there's nothing that says we can't have improvements like more public sculptures down there.
Well, as long as it's not a DeSuvero.
Well, now, that's not on me. I don't know. It's not so bad anymore.
Ugly as hell.
Consider, and if we're talking about an $8 million price tag, why not ask the corporate leadership that borders that area, the leadership of U.S. Bank, Northwestern Mutual, to perhaps form a trust that will come in and help to raise the money to
not a bad
build
idea.
that.
One of the
area.
ways you'll have some of that money is, from what the consultant's report said, in terms of the fact that the design plans were not followed. I think the county will be in a good position to sue and to recover some cost, but I think we ought to tear it down. It may be a public property that's part of the public trust, but the public doesn't trust that building as being safe. And I think that
what else might be unsafe that's in that building?
So, and it's been fraught with problems. Tear it down, start again. Take a look at what you really want that facility to be. I think the idea of having some public space in terms of parks or sculptures is great, but the reality of it is you need parking down there too. So whatever we do has got to be able to balance those two pieces that are very much in view.
Yes, Denise. Yes, we need parking.
How about Bartolotta's 350th restaurant?
Well, that's my point. You get him in there. Trust me, it doesn't matter if you put 3 DeSuveros in front of his restaurant. People will come and come and come.
All right. Next topic. Tomorrow is the 9th anniversary of the September 11th attack on America. How has that attack permanently changed this country? And do we remember it as strongly, as forcefully as we should, or is it something that we seem to be forgetting too quickly? Like if you ask, your fathers and grandfathers now about Pearl Harbor, they still get teary-eyed about that. But it seems when we talk about the 9/11 attacks, that we aren't that emotional about it anymore.
I get teary-eyed thinking about World War II and the Korean War. My dad fought in the Korean War. My grandfather and uncles fought in World War II. Unfortunately, we have short memories. And those sacrifices made by those veterans, those that went off unquestioningly in most instances to fight for this country, has been forgotten. Likewise, all the lives that were lost, while 9 years seems like a relatively short period of time, that time certainly has gone on where a lot of people have forgotten just how horrific that event was. And I'm hopeful that once the memorial is completed and we move off of some of this little nitpicky arguing that we've tended to do over the last several weeks or months here regarding space and space adjacent to it and religious effects on the memorial, I think we can then begin to really refocus on how this was an event in the lives of all Americans that needs to be remembered and honored in a very special way.
Is it good that we don't dwell on the anger that so many people felt 9 years ago?
Unfortunately, I think there's more anger now than there was then. I don't know what you two were just talking about not remembering. To me, that's one of the things we're going to remember all our lives, where we were and what we felt and what we saw.
We will, Joel, but younger people tend not to.
But the other thing I want to say, and it really disturbs me, this year particularly, there's some poll out in the Washington Post today that said that right after 9/11, 13% of the people in this country had a negative attitude towards Islam. That was right after 9/11. Now it's up to almost 50%. And that is simply because of the hatred which has most recently been perpetuated politically in a couple different instances. Some wacko down in Florida, but also the people complaining about an Islamic community center in New York, and various politicians were choosing up sides and trying to whip people into a lather in order to gain political benefit. That is so disturbing to me, because in fact, Muslim Americans also lost lives, not just the attackers, lost lives in those two buildings. And the fact that this has been politicized this year so much is just very disturbing to me, and the way hatred has been used. And I hope the president and past presidents as well, and every other responsible political leader in this country comes forward this year to try to reverse that, because that is ugly.
I think America, briefly, we're almost out of time. I understand that. Briefly, America has changed two significant ways since 9/11. One, right afterwards, we were very unified as a country.
Yeah.
We were together. Both political parties, there was more patriotism, and that has changed. And now the political schisms we're back to petty, partisan, political bickering, and it's totally changed. And that's the second way things have changed in America since 9/11. It's not like it was right after 9/11.
No, it's a disservice, quite frankly, I think, no matter what side of the aisle that you're on. It's a disservice to the memory of those people who died. To have this political gulf that has now really taken over this country. And we really want to remember the people who died in 9/11, in the Pentagon, the World Trade Center, in that farm field in Pennsylvania. What we need to do is to dedicate ourselves to tolerance and understanding. And that's not a sign of weakness. I think that's a sign of strength.
We move on. Major turmoil and major confusion down in Florida this week, where the pastor of a tiny church in Gainesville has been making threats and attracting attention. Everyone from President Obama and General Petraeus on down has been urging the pastor to call it off, but it's still not real clear exactly what he's going to do. What could a guy like this be thinking? Rick Horowitz thinks he knows. Rick?
For my next trick, I will burn the Koran, a whole mess of Korans, or maybe not. My congregation and I will build a bonfire, and we will throw the so-called holy book of Islam into the flames. Hundreds of so-called holy books. That'll show them. Or maybe we won't. Maybe we'll make a deal. It depends on the voices. My congregation and I are not numerous, but we will be heard. We are true believers. and we believe in getting the biggest bang for the buck. We will be seen. We will be noticed. They say we are playing with fire. Even America's own generals now stand against us and with the devil. We must not set the Koran on fire, these generals tell us. It will inflame passions, they say. It will put our soldiers' lives at risk. We have preyed on these generals' words, and it has been revealed to us. Not our fault. If soldiers die, not our fault. Our fingers won't be on the triggers or the detonating switches, so we will not feel guilty. God doesn't want us to feel guilty. God wants us to feel good. Burning Korans will make us feel good, so what else matters? Why have other faith leaders not rallied to our side? Why have they turned from us and called instead for tolerance and understanding? Do they tolerate us? Do they understand us? Or do they condemn us? They should condemn the devil instead. Condemn those who do the devil's work here on earth, all the more so when they try to cloak that work in false words of holiness. My congregation and I know which words are true and which are false, and we will call them each by name. We will shine a light on what is false until the world sees what we see. If that light is the light of a bonfire, so be it. If that bonfire grows and grows until it becomes a conflagration that consumes and purifies the world, so be it. And if it falls to us to be known forever after as the spark for that bonfire, for that holy conflagration, it is as the Lord has written, any publicity is good publicity.
Well, thanks, Rick, and thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.